Shada.
Shada.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Thank you. Very nice watch. Oh, guys, are we ready? Are they, yeah? Okay. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our event, Literary Bridges, a Dialogue of Cultures, at the Mohammed bin Rashid Library, a space that continuously brings together creatives and writers for inspiring and thought-provoking sessions. Writing in a language other than one's native tongue is a phenomenon that highlights a writer's ability to understand and transcend cultural and geographical boundaries. Among the notable authors who have chosen to write in a language other than their mother tongue, Agota Christoph stands out. Despite being of Hungarian origin, she writes in French. For example, the Notebook trilogy. Christoph's decision to write in French goes beyond a mere linguistic choice. It reflects her internal cultural struggle and her search for a new voice in a new language. Today, we'll discuss the impact of writing in a non-native language and how it can serve as a bridge between cultures, fostering greater understanding and communication among nations. We'll be exploring the unique experience of writing in a foreign language and how it shapes creativity, identity, and audience. We'll also hear about the personal journeys of our guests, why they chose to write in different languages, how it's impacted their work. So to start, let's welcome them. Fahad Al-Falasi, Natalia Parks, Nidhi Jain, Maher Al-Husseini, Jocelyn Shidia, Marwan Madhat, Shireen Kneider, and Rana Abihela. Okay, so I have some questions for you guys. For starters, how does writing in a foreign language affect your creative process? We'll go this way, or anyone can just jump in.
Hello. Can I? Yeah. So hi, my name is Nidhi. I'm a co-author of Spreading Joy. That was released in 2023. This is basically a biography. I'm from India. My mother tongue is Hindi. I'm sure just like any other language, it is a challenge to express all those emotions in English. And, you know, if anybody who's a writer can understand, you can write one thing in 10,000 different ways, depends on how emotions come out. So yeah, I mean, it's been like really, you know, to the writing, like, so if you ask me, first you have to curate how the book is gonna be like, then it boils down to chapter, then, you know, paragraphs, and story has to kind of correlate. So yeah, I mean, English has been, I mean, I would want you guys to please ask us questions. We'll be able to, you know, help you understand much better. But yeah, you have to really understand the character, the culture. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Same question.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you have an answer.
Of course. Writing in a foreign language actually feels, to me, it felt like dancing on a tightrope, as if I'm balancing between grabbing my knowledge, my intellect, all what I learned, and grabbing all those knowledge and putting it into a book, which was mixed between Arabic and English, and mixing between my own upbringing and how was I taught during my childhood and speaking in Arabic, speaking houses and friends and family. So it was a balance between how can I get those knowledge and bring it into the mother tongue, and balancing between those, and then getting a third outcome, which is something to be comprehensible to people and to be of value. So that was a very exciting journey. As I said, it's like dancing on a very tight rope.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Fahad Al-Falasi, and I'm author of a flash collection, and it's a fiction, of course, book. The main reason that I didn't started with my mother tongue language, because the aim of the book when I wrote it, it's about the challenges that the humanity has faced the COVID-19 age or era. And of course, it wasn't spotted in one country or one continent. It was spread in the world. So I thought that if I wrote it in an English language, I thought it will have a better reach and shall spread more to more audience. And in this way, I could interact with more people, and we have more discussion in their experiences, their challenges, what they have suffered, how they overcome those obstacles. And this is what actually I had many interesting interactions, especially in the social media platforms. So I guess this is the main reason, though also I have released an Arabic version later. But the main reason to choose the English version, as I said, and my goal was to release the English version even before the Arabic version, because I think it was a common challenge for the whole of the world. And I guess that this problem of COVID-19, although we have almost overcome it, but it's still a dominant problem that still continues until time. If you check, the statistics and the information about it on daily basis, even on the internet. Thank you very much. I think this is what I can say.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question for the audience?
Yes. So how does writing in a language not your mother tongue impact your creative process?
Beautiful. I have an advantage here because my mother tongue is English. مع إنه بحكي عربي. Okay?
You're cheating.
Yes, I'm cheating. But what I can say to you is, when you write in English, the style is very different than Arabic. How many of you here speak Arabic? Okay, so virtually half or maybe 3/4. The Arabic language is very different than English. We have a word in Arabic for everything, right? Whereas in English, it's so succinct. So I feel like when you're writing something, especially when you want to empower the audience, that it's easier to get to the nitty-gritty. I want to share this piece of information to inspire the reader. Whereas in Arabic, I have to go to Baba and say, Baba, كيف تكتب هذه الشغلة? Like, what does that mean in Arabic? Because it's massive. And if I'm not mistaken, some of you here obviously speak Arabic as a mother tongue. I believe it's over a couple of million words versus the English language, which is only 300,000 to 400,000. Again, if I'm not mistaken here. So I feel writing in English is a lot easier, but my advantage is I get to borrow from the Arabic I already know to help illustrate what I'm trying to get to. Does that make sense? So that's just personally my experience. And
So do you think you write in Arabic and then translate? Or do you think in Arabic and then translate to English?
well, that's
or
a great
vice
question.
versa?
Since I've been in Dubai for the last 3 years now, I find myself hybrid in and out of thinking in Arabic and English. However, when someone is asking me to speak Arabic, I'm actually thinking in English, but I'm speaking in Arabic. It's really interesting for some of you that could do that. So I don't know. I mean, I'm very, very fortunate, super blessed to say that I could borrow from the Arabic language and some of their definitions and then incorporate it in the English because it's so easy and it's so specific. And I believe it creates even better creative work.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Sorry, I'm going to turn.
It's okay. So for me, I'm from Lebanon. So my first language, my mother tongue is Arabic. And this is what I learned at school also, together with French. So my first two languages were Arabic and French. And the irony is the easiest language for me to write with was English, because I think in English. I read books in English, I study in English, so everything for me was easier in English. I tried to write the book in Arabic. The first draft was disaster, so I said, go and write in English because it was much easier and the words were flowing. It was very easy for me to write in English. I'm going to translate this book to Arabic, but it's going to be a translated, not really written from scratch. So for me, it was easier to write in English. I'm sorry for that, our Arab friends, but that was my journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, good evening, everyone. First of all, sorry, I have to say it. I just want to thank everybody for curating such a beautiful event. I personally feel very grateful and humbled to be here. I think that's the beauty of the UAE. And again, we witness multicultural coming together. So thank you for everyone who's put that together and for hosting me and everybody else. To you, yeah. So to answer your question, so writing in a foreign language actually did impact a lot my creative process. If anything, it impacted it in a positive manner. I am Lebanese, born in Beirut, but raised in Sierra Leone, and been living and working based off Dubai for the last 10 years. I can tell you that I've also grown up not learning or not even speaking Arabic. I could understand it at home because my parents made sure that I don't lose the language. I only learned how to write it and to read it at age 15. Having said that, that background of multicultural is what fueled actually the book that I wrote. We'll talk about it later, I guess, but to answer that specific question, it actually hit a very personal note for me because expressing myself in a different language and actually having the ability to translate it has liberated me from a mental health and wellness perspective, because as a working adult, it was difficult for me to find self-growth, and this was my voice to be able to express myself creatively. So I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi. First of all, my native language is Spanish, and I'm talking about, my book is nonfiction. So there are two main reasons why I chose to make it in English. The first one is that the main character in a nonfiction book was American. So of course his native language was English. So I had to get involved into the own characteristics of cultural languages of my character. And it was very interesting because it's an English-speaking person coming to a Spanish country, speaking country. So in that contrast, in this journey was, of course, it was a creative decision, but it was also a journey because my character goes to interact with people who speak in English. He learns words that are in Spanish, and that also helps the character to develop its depth. The second reason why I decided to make it in English is because my country is very, very far away. It's Costa Rica, it's in Latin America, it's very small, and we don't really have many writers out there. And there's wonderful writers in Spanish, and they're very well known. But I knew that I also had the responsibility or the dream to make sure that this story reach as many people as possible. Right now, over 25% of the country, it's inhabited by Spanish speakers. We learn, my own daughter, she's bilingual now. So I knew that I had the best chance to put a marking of or a good representation of my country if I made it in this language. So it has been a lot of fun, but it's also very challenging because editing could be very complicated. I think we all went through the complications of having to edit our books in another language, having to have support to edit our books in another language, and the occasional, clock that, what is this word? Like you said, like there are things that cannot be translated. That's the beauty of language, is that it shapes our brains in certain ways. And it is actually fascinating, and it's also a big challenge. And well, those are my two reasons why I decided to make my book in English.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Shireen, and I wrote this book called The Homo Strategy. Now, everybody asked me, is it a cooking book? No, it's not, I'm so sorry. But nevertheless, it's a business book, and I have a small gem. There are some cooking recipes inside. I'll not tell you why. Now, English is my third, fourth language, right? No, actually third language. So I'm French, Italian, Arabic, and English, and some Spanish. I work business in English. It's been now 4 years I'm in Dubai. I used to be in Switzerland, so it was all French, right? So my business is in English, but I think in French, Italian. So actually, I wrote half of the book in English and half of the book in French. I translated into English and Arabic. So basically, we have the three versions. Now, why English? English, okay, actually, when you write in another language, it, as we say in French, ça te désinhibe. So it
Uninhibited.
I don't know, I can't pronounce that. Désinhibé. Okay. Your creativity. And you can see, for example, when you meet someone and it's not your language, then all of a sudden, you don't know why, but you speak more. Mm-hmm. That's funny, okay? And when you meet somebody, this is what it happens. Why? Because your own language, you're blocked. So when I do my courses and my speaking or my creativity in English, it helps me be somebody else. So that's very interesting. And one last thing. What happens with the brain when you write in another language, it just opens so many other areas that you would be amazed. This is what I like about the brain. So language and creativity are very much linked. Voilà. Merci.
Thank you.
I have all the mics here.
Okay, you guys can keep the mics. They'll be coming and going. I don't need one. So the next question. Okay? Yeah? So the next question, how do you preserve your cultural identity when writing and expressing in your non-native language, in a language that's not your native tongue? How do you preserve your cultural identity?
I think when I got to understand the story, I knew the background. There was a lot of research that was done at the back end. I traveled with the character. I'm not very sure people know. I mean, if you have been in Dubai, this is a very popular brand, Joy Alucas, and the chairman is Mr. Joy Alucas. So he doesn't speak much. I had to, dig in to understand what he likes, where is he from, what was his, childhood like. So you have to do research, and I was very clear I think before writing the book, I was very clear about the marketing of the book. I knew the audience in advance. I knew who are the kind of people who are gonna pick up the book. Of course, our target was, young children who want to become entrepreneur or anybody who gets an inspiration from the book. But for sure, many percentage of Indians living out here who are very well aware of the brand, they knew it. So, and it's very beautiful, the culture of so the person is from Kerala, South India. The culture is very beautiful. And though it's a business biography, I've made it a point to, put a lot of culture, why he did certain things because of the culture. Like it's a very tight-knit community. They support each other quite a lot. The people who have been working in the firm of this person, they've been working for 20 years, 35 years, right? So I think it's like the culture that we wanted to present. And since Indians are everywhere, and the brand is also worldwide known, so I knew I'm hitting the spots. So culture is very, very important, and I think it evokes emotion, I guess, in the story. Yeah.
So the question is regarding
So how do you preserve your
my
cultural identity while writing in a foreign language?
Okay, thank you so much. As a coach and speaker, we always have the audience in mind. So I always do have the audience persona in front of me. While writing this book, I made sure not to fall into this trap, into losing my identity or maybe taking my identity into somewhere where they couldn't understand. So writing a self-help book, it was my main task and focus to write in a way that it would be understandable for anyone. It would have this universal language so that people, whoever they are from or wherever they are from, they would actually really relate to what's been written there. So more of keeping my cultural identity, it was keeping my values and the core beliefs that I believed in and transferred through the book, which I believe was already universal. It didn't have the barriers of any cultural differences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think in my position, as my book was targeted to the international community, because it based, as I said previously, on the COVID-19 challenge. So the culture issue wasn't a big step to overcome. Because my main goal, audience, approach, it was more into international than local. So I think in this matter, I didn't have any problems.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
COVID had no culture, so.
Culture. I think for me, I'm going to echo what Marwan said, because the way I looked at it when I was reading was, how can I relate to the fear that people have when they speak, especially in public? Show of hands, does your heart race when you get up and speak in public? Yes, right? Nerves, ears start to go red, you start to feel the sweat, right? I'll share a small secret with you without getting into the full story. That was the birth of my book. The first time I was ever asked to speak, it was in a Valentine's event, very similar, about 45, 50 people. And the moderator asked me, come up here, Mr. Guest. Very simple question for you, okay? And I said, go for it. She said, roses are red, violets are blue. Tell us more about you. And she sat back down. And I want you to imagine here for a second, you're there and you've never done public speaking before. I swear to you, I could hear my heart beat, and I thought the audience can hear it. And I apologized and I sat back down. And in that moment, I had two choices: either go home, tell my wife, let her make fun of me for the rest of my life, that's fine, okay? Or no, Maher, today is the day you strive to be the best speaker. And, without getting into the details, I ultimately became a professional speaker. And then I wrote a book. And I know, because I've encountered so many different people, I was in sales and I got to travel and what have you, and everybody shares the same fear. 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4 people in here will say to you, yes, I have glossophobia. I am scared to speak in public, especially if I'm unprepared. So this book was, I'm in the audience's seat. Someone asks me to speak. What do I do? How do I control my heart rate? Is it bad? What about fear? Is it real? I answer all those questions and I give you prompts to begin to refocus fear into fuel. Right? Use that as a medium so you can transfer your story, your experience, so the audience is found better than you found them. I want to remove back to the cultural question because it doesn't necessarily fall in the context of my work. Everybody in the world that I've encountered has a fear of public speaking or knows someone who has. It's virtually across the board. So I feel like for me, it was like, can I speak in a way where the audience is listening, and can I coach them on that journey? Support them, because I got that support, and Patricia Fripp, who was fortunately my coach and the former president of the NSA, she really helped shape some of my skill set, and I felt like I could do that in the book.
I think they have mics.
Now it's working.
Great.
So for me, it was actually because I said English was the easy way for me to write and to express myself. I believe our culture stays with us wherever we are, whether we live in our home country or elsewhere. It's where we grew up, is embedded in us, and it goes with us everywhere. People who live in Canada or in the US or in Europe, they carry with them, as Arabs, they carry with them the Arabic culture, no matter where they go. So where you are, where you live is your home, but you bring with you all the culture that you grew up with. So in my book, there are a couple of chapters about my childhood in Lebanon, how I grew up, how we did Christmas, how we picked snails during winter. So all these details that we had, or I lived, I grew up with as a child, they're still with me. Though I'm here for 36 years, I live in Dubai more than half of my life, but the culture or how I grew up in Lebanon, it's still in me, it's still inside. Part of it, I don't want it to be, but it's still there. And I believe it stays with us, even if you write in foreign language.
So in my experience, it was difficult to separate my identity from the work that I was doing, because first of all, I wasn't even sure I was going to have time to finish this book. I piled up on my things to do. I think it's the case for all of us. We're all super busy as working adults. We have a full-time career. We also have our personal lives. And the real question is, where do you find time for your own personal growth? And that was the question that I asked myself. Like, when do I start to actually focus on me, first of all? Secondly, when do I start feeling guilty when I'm not prioritizing myself? Because we all do that. And especially in a culture where I come from, there's no way you can prioritize yourself. Others comes first, and then you come second and third, and maybe all the way down the list in some cases. And so eventually it was very tough for me to separate myself from the way I was designing this book, because it's addressed to the working adult who's looking for self-growth and finding ability to learn a new skill. As difficult as it might seem, the older we get, the more we think it's hard to learn something new as compared to a child. And I made it a personal challenge. I didn't pressure myself to finish it, and probably that's why I finished it. So yeah, so I'm glad I didn't really separate it, but I really put myself into bringing my values. So one, integrity, of course, my culture, but my identity, which is a working adult who's trying to find space for my own creativity and expression.
So in the case of my book, The Jungle Entrepreneurs, it's not at all, it was not hard to keep my cultural identity. It was actually the way in which I was able to expand my cultural identity. It was just what I really wanted initially, because it's fiction, is just to bring you all people who don't speak, people who speak Arabic, Spanish, because for whatever reason, many of us speak English, and that's what we're doing right now, no? So I really wanted to bring others who had that ability in without caring for where they are from into my culture. This book in particular is a testimony of what it is to actually live through the Costa Rican culture, and how it is and how you feel to be there without having to be there. You actually, what I really wanted was to take you into my world, into my culture. I wanted to invite the world into this wonderful place that is very rich, and there is a lot of wealth there, but it's another kind of wealth. It's another kind of life. Even if you compare it to Dubai itself, it's a jungle. So in the jungle, we have the rain, we have the forest, we have the animals, we have the butterflies, we have the ocean that is right there. And that's also part of my cultural identity. I wanted to take anybody who speaks or sort of understands English into my own cultural experience, into what it means to me to eat what I eat there, tamales and we're not, or whatever traditional foods we have, because those traditional foods are there, the animals that we have in our beautiful nature that many people come to visit. I wanted to, without going there, I wanted to bring them into the amazingness of listening to these birds, to listening to the symphonies of the ocean, and also the sense of place. Because when we are authors, mostly when we are authors of fiction, it's our imagination the gateway to our own inner world, and we want to invite people into our experiences, how we see, or into our imagination, into our imaginary worlds, no? And this is fantastic. I think in my case particularly, because of the nature and the genre of my book, I was able to keep or even expand my cultural identity. And this is what I wanted. I wanted you and everybody here to know that there is this wonderful, wonderful, unique place that nobody knows about in this far, far away country. And English and writing in a foreign language was just the bridge to do that.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. So how do you preserve your cultural identity when expressing, when writing in a foreign language?
Okay. In my book, I hadn't this problem, right? Because it's a business book. It's actually the book of my talks. Whenever I have a talk, I write a book. That's easy. So the talk was entitled Against All Odds from Victim to Victor, right? The series is called The Problem is Not the Problem. As an expert in creativity and problem solving and decision making, the aim of this book was to enlighten, explain to people that when you have a problem, it actually is not a problem. It is the perception of a problem that is one, right? So, knowing that I don't have this problem with culture, but I do say one thing. When you live and you travel and you have kids and, life happens. One thing you don't have to forget, and I'm seeing that all the time. I lived in Switzerland, in Italy, in France, in Cyprus, in Egypt, name it. People tend to forget their roots, not really the culture, roots, okay? I was blessed to be born in Lebanon, and I say blessed. My name is Shireen Kneider. More foreign than that, you die. But I'm blessed because I know hummus, mtabbal, labne, and I know all these dishes. I can go to Italy, it's the same thing. Italian, the roots, the foods, Spain too. If you don't forget your roots, you don't forget your soul. Because we tend to forget our soul. That's it. So that is the message. If I can convey tonight, it's just don't forget where you come from. I'm just going to give you one example. I met this girl, she's Canadian. Her name is Fayrouz. Can you imagine? Fayrouz, and she's Canadian, half, I think, Algerian and half Canadian. Never been to Algeria. And she always rejected being, you know, half Algerian. And she's white but very curly hair. She's beautiful, she's amazing. And I said to her, and we were doing this coaching in neuroscience. Okay, I've been doing applied neuroscience for 14 years. And I said to her, Fayrouz, why you keep pushing this Algerian? And she goes, because my dad left us when I was small. And I live in Canada, and this is what I like about Canadian. I said, look, your name is Fayrouz. It doesn't happen for a reason. Just try to take good thing about both. And that's what today she is. And finally, she decided to embrace more Algerian than Canadian. That's my story. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So from what I'm hearing is that most of the books have universal values, so not difficult to hold cultural identity. Is that fair to say? Okay. I think you all answered my next question, which was how did it broaden your audience writing in a language that's not your own? I think everybody answered that in the first question, because English, I guess, reaches a wider audience. We have a couple more questions. What are the key challenges in translating culturally specific texts? Not everyone has to answer, because I think not all texts are culturally specific. Up to you guys. Yeah, sure.
Because, as I said before, that my Arabic language is the second tongue, and especially in fiction, when you have some ideas, some expressions, words, phrases, paragraphs, it's hard to translate it as what is in the author mind in another language, right? So what I done, first of all, yes, I had translated by myself to English, but I know it wasn't on that standard. So I went to assistance through, the freelancers websites. What I used was Upwork.com, but it's a good reputation one. And I had negotiated around 3 American editors at that time, and they asked me very specific question that reflects their professionality, I think, I'm sure. And for example, one of them, she asked me, do you want it as American English? You want it British English? Or you want it a universal English? I said, I guess the universal will be more better. And that reflected, because I had more audience from, say, for example, Indian population, Chinese population, and that. And I dealt with 3 of them, and then I filtered them to a one that we could communicate better, and she can understand my thoughts. And I give her a very great credit, to help me and transform, because in fiction, and as you know, of course, you, especially you, because for the 2 languages, sometimes you mean something in Arabic, but maybe didn't find the exact words or the phrases that may convey this, the message to the reader. Yeah.
I'm happy to share also.
Yeah, go ahead.
So a little bit of background on the book. It's actually a learning book for obviously the working adult, as I had mentioned. And as you're trying to learn a new language, which in this case is the Spanish language, and I'll explain maybe later why I chose that. But so in the book specifically, as you go through the different levels as you're learning, every single step is actually translated in English. So English, you're reading it in Spanish, but every single, from the alphabet all the way through the beginner to the advanced beginner, and as you progress in your learning journey, there is an actual sentence to sentence, word to word, paragraph to paragraph translation. So again, to your point, and I don't know who mentioned that earlier, I forgot, I'm sorry, that when you're thinking, you're in a different language, yourself, yeah? So when you're thinking in a specific language, you end up also speaking in a different way. So I'll give you a basic example. I'm not sure if you can relate. In Arabic, we say, طلعت لفوق. I went up the stairs, I went down the stairs, نزلت لتحت, je suis montée en haut, je suis descendue. The small nuances that you find in a language as you speak it are not necessarily right. They've become so normalized that we think they're right, but eventually grammatically, if you are teaching a language or in education or editing, we were discussing about editing and its difficulty and proofreading and all of that, you realize there's so much challenges in actually translating any
idioms.
context.
I think the idioms are the most difficult.
The idioms and also the meaning behind the message that you're trying to share. So for example, a philosophical message, because eventually this is not just a functional tool as a book, it's also about sharing a culture. As I was saying, for me, this is beyond just word-to-word translation. Everybody can go on Google Translate and have that done. Here it's all about sharing a cultural journey and knowledge and information and bridging the gap between different communities and cultures. So how do you make sure that message also is not lost in translation, as we say? So it's quite challenging. It's a major learning curve. And there's always something to take out of every challenge, as we always say. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, in my case, I think I cheated because at the beginning of the book, we have, first of all, I had to ask a native speaker, American, to actually come and say, okay, this sounds American. It's not like, it's a challenge. You always need that support to have like the proofreading by some native speaker, because in that way, it actually helps you to make sense of it and to reduce the amount of mistakes and ultimately get your message across.
More authentically.
More authentically. And you actually, it's part of the editing. I think it's one of the hardest things. And I was thinking of your book, is English and Spanish is like going into my head as well. Like it's all the challenge of translating very specific terms from one language to another. And definitely if you're bilingual or a polyglot, you're always gonna have certain things, or even if you're learning stuff like from Arabic now that I'm living here, all of a sudden I understand the yalla, you know, or inshallah. Inshallah, I was fascinated with my friend, she must be around here, about the word inshallah. Inshallah, we have it in Spanish, it's ojalá. But when it just crossed my mind that a word that I've been saying over and over and over again comes from Arabic, it just landed me right here in Dubai. It landed me into your culture, and it was like a gateway in which my brain understood that it made a journey through history, and boom, boom, boom. It was like 600 years of history just landed into my mouth and then into my brain. And then I was here. And through language, I was landed in Dubai. So there's so many richness about these kinds of experiences. And there are challenges as well. So always get somebody who's going to proofread your book, and he actually is a native speaker. That's the best recommendation. But also understand that there will be things that you have to share in your own language, because they only mean what it means in your language. In my case, I cheated, as I said, and the point of that is that my character starts talking in a very smart English, and by the time he's been there in my country, he starts speaking Spanglish. He starts saying the words, instead of translating them, he says it in Spanish. When he learns about certain types of food, he doesn't say coconut water, he says pipa. Or when he goes, he really goes through the language of his journey. And I think that's something that is very relatable, and we all go through that as well.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, sure.
So, related to writing a book, I must tell you, it took like 3.5 years, but consciously there was a decision not to listen to Indian music, not to speak in Hindi, my mother tongue, not to converse. The only exception was because the character speaks in Malayalam. He was the only person who was allowed to speak in his language because he's not well versed with English. So consciously for 3.5 years, I did not listen to any music, not even did my prayers.
Wow.
It's very important to be in sync with the language that you're in. I was able to, I mean, English is very versatile. I mean, I agree with Sir when he said that do you want a British English, you want American English. So I knew my audience is more in UK, so it has to be British English. But it was more like a marketing thing. And I actually improved a lot of my vocabulary. I used to, extend my sentence to understand that there is a one unique word that can just squeeze the entire sentence into one, and and can actually evoke emotions also. So that was the practice, and I still remember when the book was launched, I watched my first Hindi movie because
Which one?
huh?
Which one?
That was Ranveer Singh's movie. I'm not very sure. If you know, it was in 2021. Are you well versed with Indian
Yes.
movies? Yeah. Okay. So, but yeah, we started listening to a lot of Amitabh Bachchan, back because my character loves Amitabh Bachchan. So we started singing those songs because that was the sacrifice. It's very, very important to get in sync with the language. In fact, we used to watch a lot of English movies together. Yeah, I mean, just my experience while writing the book.
Amazing. Thank you. I'm going to ask you guys one fun question that's not on my sheet. What language do you dream in? This is just for me. I want to know. English?
Gibberish.
Colors?
Okay, well, that's very funny because I used to dream in French. Then I went to live in Italy, right? And while I landed in Italy, I didn't speak Italian. Then for 3 months, it was intensive Italian. Okay, I was living with an Italian, that was easier. And back then, you didn't have subtitles in the movies. When the day I started dreaming in Italian, I knew that was my first language and not French anymore. So where you live,
I was going to ask, do you think it depends on your location?
I have this experience in 4 languages. When I go back to Lebanon, you don't know why, sometimes there are these words in Arabic, which Arabic, we never heard it at home, never, ever. And then these words come. And then when you drive, you have the Arabic that goes out, or Italian, not French. Okay? So I think it's where you live, and yeah, it's
You
the
kind
language.
of get in sync with the environment, actually. Yeah.
I think for me, it depends on the context of the dream. Really does. I'll share something with you openly. I lost my mom in 2023. Yes, I know. But I openly share because she was so monumental in shaping me as a man who I am today, and hopefully where I go and her legacy. But when she visits, she says to me in Arabic, أنا منيحة, like, stuff like that. But if I am asking for a dream for some guidance, if you guys know The Power of the Subconscious Mind, if you don't, go read Joseph Murphy's book. He talks about it. Dreams are very powerful. They come in symbolic ways to help you use your intuition. It's always in English. So I think to Shireen's point, I think in English, but again, it depends on the context as well. Different contexts give you different dreams, different languages, and it does vary from situation to situation.
Yeah. First of all, my deepest condolences, of course. I totally resonate with what Nidhi said about the environment and how it can impact our internal dialogue that happens. I'm blessed to have my wife here within the audience. And actually, there was one incident that I would like to share, which is once she woke me up, and it was like, Marwan, you're speaking. And then it's like, I speaking while sleeping. Okay, so I occasionally do that, not too much, and not too excessive. So I was like, okay, so what did I say? She said, I didn't actually recall, but it was in English. So that was the moment where I was like, yeah, it happens. Like most of my interactions on daily basis were in English. So that's why it's a proof that I dream in English. So yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's pretty much in line with everyone.
Yeah.
It's in my case, it's really linked to the context I'm going through, like whatever is happening in my life, what's impacting me. And again, I'm sorry for your loss. So I think our dreams are very much in sync with what we're going through subconsciously. So I'll tell you what I'll dream about tonight. I'll message you.
Yeah, I'm waiting. Okay, you want to say one more question? Could you guys just tell us a little bit about your books and maybe read a favorite line, if that's not too difficult? Yeah, should we go? We'll go like that.
All right. So this was the first print that I had. It's just like my baby of like 3 years. This book is very, very emotional. I've like really cried a lot. I've read my chapters 10,000. I don't know how many times, but I think 10,000 times. So we were like, it's a co-authored book. So we were very, very fortunate. We requested the publisher if we can write like a small thank you note to the character that comes under a note from the co-author. That was very, very emotional for at least me when I was penning it down, because the process was so much of fun. The writing timing was so odd. I never understood when there was a sunrise, when there was a sunset. We have played football, chess together. We have made coffee together, all of us. We lived like each other's life for almost 3 years. So for me, I'm a very, very emotional person, and thanks to HarperCollins, they gave us like 3-4 pages to write our thank you note. So I just want to like read one paragraph, if it is okay. So I get into the psyche of a human being. I don't know, for some reason it's there. I can sense the person from very far, if I can be friend, or I'm just going to like you from very far. So there's one thing that I wrote was, what makes his success so incredible is the fact that he overcame apparently insurmountable odds. A big part of his personal and professional success is owed to his ability to put his faith in people who have the confidence and passion to execute their tasks. He has given them a platform and unfettered freedom, regardless of their education or past performance. Why am I saying this a particular paragraph is because I've never written a book in my life. When he gave me a green signal, the character gave me a green signal to write his biography, the one thing I was asking God, do you think I'll be right? It's going to be a worldwide release. My God, I mean, I've never written a book. Of course, I write here and there, but writing a book is a different thing. But I think it's like a God intervention or a God gift. And that's why I wanted to put this sentence here. For instance, when we presented the idea of this book, he didn't question our thinking or our lack of experience. This person never asked me if I have written the book before. In fact, I met a lot of senior writers during the launch who asked me if I have written, book before, if I have experience. I said, no, this is my first book. And it's an international release, so I want to thank him again. I'm sure I'm gonna show him this video, and thank God. I never knew I could be a storyteller, actually. So yeah, I think that's what dreams are made of.
Thank you.
Before reading a part of the book, let me share with you my own personal story or a glimpse of it. Back in 2015, it was the lowest point in my life. I was like kind of stuck in a job. It was nice. It pays well. But at the same exactly, but at the same time, I wasn't actually finding myself. I was during the years I lost myself year after year after year for a good paycheck, but I didn't realize that I was losing my true self. I was losing my passion, my spirit, my zest for life. So when I discovered that, it was like a disaster to me. And one of the reasons that shifted the curve was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. And when I was passionate about reading that book, it was an idea that came through my mind back in Riyadh, in Olaya Street. I remember the scene very vividly. And it was like, there are negotiation skills trainers, communication skills trainers, selling skills trainers. How come there is no life skills trainers? People who can train us how to overcome our challenges in life and how to help us succeed. Why does success seem so hard? So when I got to learn about life coaching, about hypnosis, about the timeline paradigm, about all the personal development, I didn't know that there was an alternative world down there. But when I got to understand and learn that knowledge, I decided to write something about it. So I wrote the 7 reasons why people fail and how to achieve greatness, which was intended to be in an easy bite so that anyone can read it and can also implement the learnings from the lessons, from the failures. Those are my 7 failures. They can resonate with the readers. And I believe that there are also 7 reasons that, when overcome, they can lead to success, inshallah.
So can I ask why only 7? What's with the numbers?
It's a lucky number.
What's with the
There's
numbers?
a magical thing about number 7. First of all, my birth is 27/7. Okay, so, but the second thing, there are 7 heavens, 7 earths. So the number 7 is very magical, and it holds to me a very significant meaning. And it's so we're the 7th level, very smart. So I'm reading to you now the reason number 7. Interestingly enough. So the reason number 7 is that they think that they have to do it all alone. And that's the reason. Likewise, when it comes to life, unfortunately, no school teaches us how to live. We are taught geometry, science, foreign languages, but we're never taught what to do when we face a life challenge, or how to set our life goals and plan them effectively. We tend to believe that to learn that, we must figure it all by ourselves. We go through expensive trials and errors, hoping that it could work somehow. In the next section, the book is 3 sections: the reason, what to do instead, and actual practical exercises. So in the what to do instead, I spoke about Robert Kiyosaki's approach to dealing with low productivity is very inspiring. He doesn't wait for the motivation to strike. He proactively reaches out for professional help, having it ready, available on speed dial. It's only 1 hour. When he feels his motivation down, he speeds dial his coach. Thank you.
Thank you.
As I told you previously, that my book is a collection of flash stories. So I tried to mix between in each story to mix a message and a joyful experience in reading. So, if I may, I could share with you some few lines related to those stories.
Your favorite line.
Yeah, yeah. What I thought it may be deep and may relate to the reader. For example, there's a story called A Battle on Two Fronts. The line is. Okay, I'm sorry, okay. A story called A Battle on Two Fronts. The line is, those who fail to triumph over their desires could never triumph over their enemies. And another story, the line was the wound of soul cuts deeper than of the body. And other, for example, needless to say, mistakes in love and war are beyond repair. And other, it's a bit romantic story, okay, called The Language of Eyes. When it comes to true love, the heart sees what's invisible to the eyes. And another story, there's a line where I like it so much. Ignoring life's problems could become a problem in itself. And in another story, the deeper the love, the deeper the hate. Okay. And other one, the greatest mistake you could ever make is repeating one. And I could say the last one, it's about a personality in this story. He said, only for the sake of love do I love, never for whom I love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I have one from this book, and I have another one coming in the next book. Do you guys want to get the sneak peek after this one? Yeah? Okay. This is in the introduction by a famous Roman philosopher, Publius Sirius. He says, speech is a mirror of the soul. As a man speaks, so is he. Think about that for a second. So powerful, so brief, but it could truly, truly allow you to experience the Spirit like it should. That's why I teach speaking, facilitating, and empowering you, because everybody has a change to speech in them. Everybody. You all have unique experiences, stories, blueprints, and just one story, if it lands on the right ears, could transform that individual. And the beautiful part about speaking and communicating is it has a butterfly effect, because maybe I don't ever meet your friends, but today you share with them this quote. Boom. You just impacted them. That's the power of the spoken word. In the next book, I have it literally in the first 2 pages after the introduction. The magic you are seeking are in the speeches you are avoiding. What is that speech that you have in you that could truly create magic in this world? By the way, you guys are getting a sneak peek of the new book called 10x Your Aura When You Speak, okay? But these are the 2 quotes I want to keep them brief, powerful, and hopefully they serve as a reminder to use your voice.
Okay, thank you.
So my book is about my story in Dubai, being here for 36 years, how I lived, how I was in pain and how I healed, and along the way, all the lessons I learned and how I help people to heal through the steps I put here. And I would like to mention something. I wanted to call this book, I wanted the title to be My Story, but Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid wrote his book and he called it My Story. So in Arabic we say العين ما بتعلى عن الحاجب. I didn't want to call the same, so I put the title as My Blueprint. And I took from his book actually My Story. He said when he was 6 years old, it was his first trip to England. He went with his father, they went via Lebanon. And he said when they landed, he loved the country and he said, it's a beautiful place. I wish one day Dubai will be the same. I wrote in my book exactly the same what he wrote. I wish one day Lebanon is like Dubai. So this is really, we are grateful for being here. We are grateful for these opportunities that we have. And I would like to read the last. You did the first part. For me is the last sentence of the book. Literally the last sentence. Because I'm helping people here to heal through reading these messages. So remember, every experience, no matter how difficult, holds the potential for transformation and growth. Clasp the journey, trust the progress, trust the process, and know you can overcome anything. You are a warrior, you are a survivor, and a thriver. Thank you.
Yeah, so in my case, it's also very personal. My story is no different than anyone else's. Again, I keep mentioning that we are all on this journey of life, trying to make the most of it, trying to manage between our work, making sure we don't lose ourselves along the way, listening to our intuition. How do we actually reconnect with ourselves? Obviously, I'm insisting on the fact that my story is no different than anyone else's. We all have our own struggles, and I am sure if none of us would have suffered at some point in our lives, we wouldn't have been inspired to do anything. Like the main source of our motivation is actually sadly coming from a difficult moment that has pushed us to break through and do something. And this particular book for me is a testimony of the fact that as cliche as I might sound, nothing is impossible. When you literally put your mind to something, you will achieve it. That has become my motto in life. Nothing is impossible, regardless of the age you're at, above 40. A mother or a single mother, or even a non-married, non-conforming to the cliches of life, whatever journey you are on, remember that there is still time to do a lot of things. There is a lot of time. And this is a testimony of my own experience. I never thought in a million years that I would be writing a book. I never thought I'll finish it, and somehow I'm here today. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, it's when you least expect things to happen that they actually come through. And another interesting point is that we do take ourselves too seriously in life. Like we're constantly striving to reach a goal, and we forget the ability to just have fun and listen to the child that lives in us. So I actually had planned, when you first asked us to read a different passage, but then I remembered what I wrote in the beginning of the book. So I actually wrote that, and it says, to the child in us who is eager to learn, to the adult in us, the forever student of life, to the journey of continued growth. So this book itself is a testimony that you can always learn something at any point. Thank you.
Wow, it's very hard for me. I don't know to answer to this. But then I was just seeing at the end of the chapter, and I think is what I ultimately, I don't know, I just found it. So this is gonna have to be it. Okay. So it says, I didn't need anything but that old shell of a house and the souls, my friends, who inhabited it. I projected into my closed eyelids all the wonderful things I've discovered about myself in these 154 days, surviving the rot of the rainy season and the fear of it all. I hear the howler family in the distance, the ocean's breathing waves that took the wind off, that took my mind off worries and sorrow. The tall branches crackling, calling for the Great Spirit. I am alive, I am alive, I am alive, and I'm the luckiest man in the world. That would be it.
First, I will answer to Marwan. Because when you were speaking, my couple of friends were looking at me and said, this is your book, Shireen. So what you were mentioning at the beginning, when you have problems, well, it's inside here. And actually, I have a recipe or an equation of problems and overcoming them. Okay? No, will not unveil it for you. This is first. And second, I think we are all saying the same thing. We're all talking about our lives, and no one told us how to overcome them. No one. We had to get inside. I'm not going to say it first and then look up. So I'm going to read something for you. Just 3 lines of the beginning and 3 lines at the end, and my quote. One of my quotes is, if life throws at you chickpeas, make hummus. Okay? So that's me. Not if life give you lemonade, lemons make lemonade. So you want me to do it with the French accent or the Italian or whatever you want? Let's French, let's have fun because you're all very serious. Okay. Life is a journey of heights and lows, much like a roller coaster ride. Without these lows, life would lose its flavor, its zest, its challenges, those moments of self-reflection that shape us, making us more sensitive, more human, more complete. I don't claim that misfortunes are necessary to save our life, but as the proverb goes, there is no rose without thorns. And at the end...
That's an Italian quote, isn't it? That you translated, non c'è rosa senza spine.
Sì, anche. In my next book, The Problem Isn't the Problem, I will reveal the secrets of our brain creativity functioning, which shape our daily lives. Our lives can be lived in a radiant sun full of hope, or in a multitude of problems. Thank you for this country, Lebanon, which has taught me so much. Thank you to my late parents, who remained humble and kind. Thank you to the challenges. Thank you to life. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you all so much for joining us at Literary Bridges at MBRL. A special thank you to our panelists. I'm sure we're all going to leave here with new insights into the intersection of culture, languages, identity. Just before we conclude, we have a book signing with our authors. Okay, so if we can make our way there.
And a big round of applause to you guys for being here.
Any questions?
Yeah, thank you, all of you.